Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marvelous.
Sorry to be a minute late.
Did you get the pledge?
What's that?
We have to make you do the pledge alone?
I came in. I was holding my heart.
That's good. So it looks like Tom's the only absentee tonight. Okay. Did anybody have any comments on the minutes as they were distributed?
I looked them over in an email, and they seem fine.
I have no issues.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the May 3rd meeting as written.
Do you have any? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Butch, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We have an application and a public hearing for 108-03465 Highland Street for a special exception. Is there someone going to present on this, do you know? You are? Oh, come forward.
Right here, sir. I'm Aaron Chappell. I'm appearing on behalf of Highland and Avery, also known as Plymouth General Dentistry. So what we're looking to do here is just simply place a concrete pad to put a permanent standby generator.
Before we get started, sir, I want to apprise you of the fact that we don't have a full board.
Absolutely.
So you have an option, if you want to delay this until we do have a full board, or to go forward with the 4 members that we have here tonight.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I'd also like you to know that the lady in that place fixes my teeth.
Mine too.
So if that causes a difficulty,
No, I don't
It's a
believe.
small town.
you're going to lose 2 more people in your board.
It's a small town. That's what happens. Everyone knows
Exactly right.
everybody, and everyone has a connection.
So what is your connection to the proponent here?
So I'm a contract employee of both businesses that they work with. I do a lot of just side work for them. I'm a retired police officer and just work a lot in the public sector and political events and public events and different type of just kind of municipal work, having done it for so many years on the other side of it.
Okay. Go right ahead, sir.
Sure. So what we're looking to do is just place a concrete pad for a generator. Right now there's a temporary standby generator that's a mobile unit that's sitting in part of the parking lot. That unit, unfortunately, is not large enough to power the entire practice. Anything larger than that would not be able to be trailered or put any place. Obviously, we want some type of permanent standby generator to be able to power the medical facility. Looking at all the available options on the really small parcel, as I believe it's noted in your notes, it predates any zoning or planning regulations and it's grandfathered in. It's a very small site to begin with. The parking lot off to the right-hand side of it on Avery Street has 8 parking spaces currently. Currently, there are 10 staff members that are employed there, and that's the staff parking area. And that also houses the handicap parking. The only place on the property that this could potentially be placed that would meet the setbacks required from the building for the generator and not be encroaching on the setbacks from any other property owners would be smack in the middle of the parking lot, which would eliminate 6 of the 8 parking spaces. So the only option we had was to put it on the only other piece of property that's not occupied by a parking space that would be far enough away from the building to meet the appropriate setbacks from the building for fire code purposes, which would be on the corner, basically, of Highland Street on the property line with the hospital. So if you're familiar with that piece of property, which I'm sure most people are, it's set up pretty high off the ground. I mean, it's about 9 feet elevation from the roadway. So it's going to be elevated. There's a lot of rhododendron bushes and a maple tree there. We actually moved it a little bit further forward than the original plan had called for because they want us to take down the tree, which the property owners and myself both concurred that that was not a good idea to take down a probably 100-year-old maple tree that looks beautiful in that part of town. So we moved it over just a touch. So basically, it's going to be encroaching on the setbacks of Highland Street primarily, as well as the property of the hospital, which is at that location, just a parking lot.
So what we have on this diagram is not correct? Is that
No, I
right?
believe that's the correct diagram. It was, you mind if I take a look at that one just to make
Surely,
sure
yeah.
Where the X is?
Nope, that's correct.
So it's not in the street right away.
Correct. It's right on the edge of it, but it does not go into that actual right of it. It's just the setbacks that,
Okay.
Right.
that it does not meet.
Where is it in this?
It's
Zoomed
this
in,
little
if you,
spot here,
on the other
Right there.
corner of it,
where it says PG.
Okay.
there's on the corner of one of the pages, I believe there should be if you don't have it, I have
Oh, we have it.
this copy, but it's the big zoomed in version of it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.
So it's just over a 5-foot by 10-foot concrete pad. They'll house a generator. With all the bushes there, it's going to be mostly obscured from view anyway. And the property owner intends, so once that's in, place some more shrubbery on the other side of it just to help obscure the generator, which would also then in turn remove the other generator from view, which is kind of right on the other corner of the building that's still quite visible from the road as well.
Any of the board members have any questions?
So, just so that I'm understanding, do you lose power frequently there?
No, not very frequently, but it was really the kind of mindset changed quite a bit during the pandemic, with a lot of the governor's orders requiring medical facilities, including dental offices, to remain operating at capacity, in times of medical crisis. So the thinking really changed to instead of having a generator that can kind of get by with some of the equipment. The current portable generator only powers about 35 to 40% of the equipment on the premise, so it doesn't allow the practice to fully function. And it's actually being purchased through a Health and Human Services federal grant to also allow medical facilities to remain open in the event of a lengthy outage.
Is that a regulation or something of the sort?
No, it's just strongly encouraged. Especially given the past couple years and things that we've learned about access to medical treatment and pandemic-related emergencies and any other type of emergency, to have these facilities being able to still remain operational.
Did we get any communication from any of the neighbors? No. Peter?
What alternative analysis did you perform, including siting generator on the site?
I'm sorry, I guess I didn't.
What alternative analysis have you performed, including siting the generator within the site?
Well, the only real analysis we could do is where we could legitimately place it. The fire regulations require it be so far away from the building, and it's only a quarter-acre lot with a significantly large building on it. So, like I said, the only place on the property that it could be placed without encroaching on setbacks would be in the direct center of the parking lot, which comes off of Avery Street and goes to would be the south side of the building. So we really had little to no options of where it could possibly be, and right now the generator is where the dumpster used to be. And the dumpster is, taking up an additional parking space, but for the size of the permanent generator, it wouldn't meet the setback requirement in that location, so it'd have to be pushed more into the parking lot. So the only two places on the parking lot that by, standoff distance from the building that it could be placed are where we're requesting to put it and in the parking lot.
How often do you have to test that? You run,
It's required to do a once a week test, just like the hospital or any other commercial buildings. And typically those are designed to run usually in the middle of the day or early afternoon, midweek, when it's a typical time that something would make noise.
Right. Yeah, we live up near the high school up there, and there's fires off it always at different times, so.
Yeah, usually they're supposed to be set. If they're programmed correctly, they'll go off at the same exact time every single week. The last police department I worked for example, ours went off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon every Thursday and ran for 20 minutes. Just as a,
So an example of my question was, did you approach, or could you have approached Spear Memorial about either acquiring land or acquiring an easement?
we didn't approach them for it. They have a good working relationship with Spear Hospital, and that the only section that would be available would actually be their driveway that comes in. So I honestly don't know that there's been any correspondence about a possible easement or acquiring land, but I can say that from the location of that, the only option that would be available would be their actual driveway access itself, because that's actually their roadway in. So there wouldn't be any property that I think would be feasible that would even come up, even be able to have a conversation with them.
Interesting, because it appears to me there's a wedge of land right behind one of their concrete walls that's at the end of your parking lot that would be quite suitable, even at grade.
Yeah, I know that hasn't been discussed with the hospital about purchasing any land from them. It's not that I'm aware of that's come up.
Thank you.
There doesn't appear to be anybody from the public to present here this evening. Anything else you'd like to say, sir?
No, unless you have any further questions.
Okay. If that's the case, then I'll close the public hearing. We'll go on to discuss it as a board. Let's issue, are you going to take notes, June?
Sure, Joseph and I together can compile our notes afterwards.
Okay. Let's start with findings of, well, first, any questions we might have amongst the board. I guess I can say, for one, I didn't know that there was more or less a policy that they have individual power. I didn't know that.
That they're encouraged to have their own power source, being a
Right
medical.
down the street, and we very seldom lose power, but I can understand why they'd have a need.
Mhm. Mm.
So I guess I'd offer that as the first finding of fact. There's a public policy that health care providers have supplemental power.
So they can run 100%.
And it is a healthcare facility, right?
It's a
Like,
healthcare
I
facility.
mean, I think sometimes we think about a dental office as, cleanings and routine things, but it is a medical facility, right? Luckily, I don't need that kind of care, but some people do.
The affected right-of-way would be the Highland Street, which is the
It's the Highland Street setback.
setback.
Yeah.
That's a finding, yeah.
And do we have, can we make a finding, something about the lot being developed before we really had,
The lot predated zoning,
it predated zoning?
Yeah.
Right, because it is an irregular lot, right?
that's for sure.
And they do accomplish a lot in a small space.
Well, it was a funeral home at first.
Wait, was there a funeral home there? I didn't,
LaFontaine's funeral home,
well, I didn't know that.
busy place.
Busy place.
The proponent has said it's going to be shielded by shrubbery.
Yeah, their image does show shrubbery around some of it, but not so much on the backside, which bumps up against the hospital, but that's a It's the hospital parking lot, I think that's over there, right? Yeah, paved parking lot.
It's a steep grade there, too.
It is, right?
I'm gonna take the liberty of asking the proponent one question I didn't ask. How's it fueled, sir?
It's a diesel-powered generator. It's a standard CAT standby generator.
And where does the fuel come from?
It has its own tank.
That's part of the box that we see?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And any fueling of that would take place from the parking lot area around the side of the building.
All right. I think we could also state in the application that the building itself encroaches on the setback. Is that not accurate?
It is largely accurate.
Yeah, pretty much accurate.
They have site improvements that aren't even contained within their property boundary. I went to the zoning ordinance to look up the definition of structure or accessory. And, because my question was, does a concrete pad or equipment even qualify as a structure? In most regulations, it does not. However, in this town, in this definition, it says anything constructed or erected with a fixed location on the ground.
The pad would do that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, because it's not like an addition, right? It is a pad.
Do you want me to make a suggestion? When, I was just thinking about the parking, the total number of parking spaces on the site, because the ordinance does require that they have parking. So to put it in the parking lot would remove parking. So there'd be another conflict there if you're,
Well, I think there's many ways that this
yeah.
structure, in terms of impervious surface and everything else, I think it really doesn't meet today's zoning,
Right.
but it's there, so.
I've got to excuse myself for a minute. I'll come right back.
We'll take a short recess while.
I liked the tree, the fact that they wanted to leave the tree. I think there's merit there. I think that's something that we should note, right? That partly it's not bumping it up against that parking lot because there is an old tree there. And maybe that's sentimental, but
You know, we got something in about, they can't give up parking spaces in lieu of a generator.
3, 4.
What they could, but they would then maybe not have enough parking per the ordinance, so
Right.
that's, then
So
to
we
be,
got a finding of fact that way?
I'm just suggesting you might wanna suggest that, because they did state that the
Yes,
only place to meet the setbacks was gonna be within the parking lot, and they would lose 6 spaces, I think he said, so,
they would lose 6 spaces.
yes, that's what he said.
Well, it would definitely lose some parking, and it does seem like there's 8 parking spaces, and they have 10 staff. And then what I counted was 9 parking spaces on Avery Street.
Is there an administrative recommendation in this case?
I don't think we put one on the staff report, but it seems, I would suggest that it's a very reasonable request, given the site and the location and the nature of the business.
Okay.
And the shrubbery that will remain for screening it, so you might wanna consider that as a condition, just to make sure it happens, you know, that shrubbery landscaping, because you can always add additional conditions, you know, so you
Yeah.
might just wanna follow up, and even though it was stated, make sure that that's a requirement.
I think we should put in a fact that the pad is 53.59 square feet.
Is that, where do you get that dimension? Is that on the,
on the-
Application.
on the
Application.
application? Okay, thank you. I keep trying to read this very small print on the map. Even with my cheater glasses, it's hard.
Yeah, I was trying to find the parking requirements and/or reference to zoning. So like, 8 required, 8 provided, or 4 required, 12 on site. What, that would be a finding of fact. Can they afford to lose any, or are they underparked, or did they already have a previous, are there any other, like, past permits or variances or special exceptions associated with this parcel? Are we aware of any?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
I think one of the problems is that it all was developed
Yeah, it's such an old site.
years and years ago.
Right.
So it does say a concrete pad
I think it's a shame it's in
is 10.15 feet by 5 by 28.28 feet.
Yeah, with the application, actually, they did the multiplication for you.
I did. That's great. And then the generator gives the dimensions of the generator too. Roughly 8 by 3
off-site. So
to fit on it.
it doesn't have, no. Where did you see 10 employees? Was that the application or the plan?
Client said there was 10 employees. Yeah. And that might include, I'm not sure if that includes the business owners who I think do reside at that facility as well.
So let's go through the requirements for a special exception.
You want to read back findings of fact that we,
Could you do that, please?
I'll try.
Go right ahead.
Paraphrased a few of them here. Joseph, you can jump in when if I missed any. One was that there was a public policy recommendation that there is backup power for this type of a use. That type of use is a healthcare / medical facility. The setback being affected is on Highland Street. The lot predated zoning. It's to be shielded through some shrubbery and landscaping. The fuel for the generator is diesel, and refueling it will happen from the parking lot. Parts of the building are already in the setback area. Let's see. There was no communication from any abutters, negative or positive. There was nobody here at the public hearing, negative or positive, to speak for or against it. They're leaving a large tree, which is a positive aspect for the community. In order to meet setbacks, it would end up losing approximately 6 parking spaces. The pad's 53.59 square feet.
53 feet.
The site was developed a long time ago and has about 10 employees.
That's square feet, right? 53? Is that
Sorry, square feet,
square
yeah.
feet. I
I
was
think
gonna
we
say
could add
50.
something like Peter suggested, that to lose parking spaces, they would place them in violation
Okay.
of the zoning ordinance.
I think that's likely the case, right? Because they have, I mean, that business doesn't seem to be a problem business in terms of parking, right? Like, just from my experience in town, I don't notice cars parked all around their building, right? They seem to have adequate parking.
Include the criteria.
It should be in the, I think you have a copy of the application where it's in.
Those are the steps, yeah.
Yep.
So the first one is, is the proposed use allowed in this ordinance by special exception?
True.
True?
True.
True. Explain how the site is an appropriate location and of adequate size for this use.
Yeah, I feel it's adequate size, so it'd be true.
Yeah.
What the application says, this location is the only location on the property which can be used for the placement of this generator as it meets the required setback from occupied structures. It was a finding we should have made. The thing has to be a certain distance from the building.
Oh, yeah, that's a good find.
And included in number 2 should be also the building lot pre-existed the zoning ordinance, and therefore the setbacks are inadequate to begin with. This is within the commercial zone, is it not, June?
No, it's,
It's the civic institutional
Civic
zoning.
institutional.
Mhm.
It's interesting.
So have we got what we need for number 2?
I think we have to go around the table to vote on it.
We will, yeah.
Yep.
All in favor of number 2, that it's appropriate location and adequate size for the use?
I think that's true. I think it's the only location.
I don't concur that it's the only location. If it weren't for that phrase,
That's their phrase.
correct?
We could take out, okay, let's amend that.
Well, it's the only location, though, to put it and to not be in violation of the parking ordinance for their business.
Not on board with that one either.
so the phrasing from the.
What if we take out is the only
Yeah.
and put in the word appropriate?
So the criteria that you're judging this against is a little different the way it's in the application. It's that the specific site is an appropriate location and of adequate size for the use.
Yeah, Roman numeral number 2, yeah.
Yep.
That, as written,
Right.
is
Different than, yeah.
different and more applicable, I believe.
Okay,
Even this pre-existing lot.
so you're a yay?
I'm a true now, correct.
Yeah, true. And I'm a true.
I was a true already.
Third one, explain how the use as developed will not adversely affect the character of the area in which the proposed use will be located.
Butch, did you vote on the last one? Yeah, you did, okay.
You voted yay.
Okay. Just wanted to make it wasn't missed. Sorry, number 3 then.
It will affect the character of the area.
Isn't the front portion of Spear their generator system?
Yeah, it's in that big parking lot over here somewhere, right? Yeah.
You know, I think that's accurate. And they also parked that giant,
Dumpster?
well.
Aren't there
it's a-
dumpsters
Some
there?
sort of tractor trailer thing.
Yeah, I think it's an imaging,
Machine.
I don't know.
yeah, but, I mean, it's giant. It's a 53, 50, yeah, it's, yeah.
That lot is not, it's not like,
It's not screened
it's
at all.
not welcoming, right? It's not like it's not your putting your best foot forward, right? It's not your front face.
The applicant did say it's elevated, and we all know from driving by there that the site is up and away from Highland Street, so
Yeah.
I think with adequate landscaping, it can be relatively concealed, which would be, as you said, far different than its neighbors, so I think that adds value.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Yes.
How are you on that one, Butch?
True, yeah, I agree, true.
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 I'm true. There'll be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
I think that's true.
That's true.
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 Explain how the use will not place excessive or undue burden on the town's services.
I think
True.
that's true.
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 Explain how there'll be no significant effect resulting from which such use upon the public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood in which the use would be located.
I think that's true.
The only conceivable thing would be noise, and as a rule, it's seldom gonna run. And health safety would be enhanced, actually.
Yeah. It's a public good.
I think that statement's true.
Yep, true.
True.
True. So I guess we've reached the bottom line. We've approved your application, sir. Thank you very much. Should we vote in the overall?
I think you should vote in the overall, yeah.
Okay. All in favor of, want to make a motion, Steph?
Sure. I'll make a motion to, what's the wording I should do, is approve the application, the special exception for, what was it, Highland and Associates? Highland and Avery LLC for Plymouth General Dentistry at 65 Highland Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye?
Opposed? It's unanimous. The application is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you for the preparation.
Welcome.
Moving right along. Is there any correspondence we have to worry about?
No.
Trying to find my- Anything unfinished? Joseph?
None that I'm aware of.
Yeah, well, you got a better chance of being aware than we do. All right. New business. HB 1661. I don't know if you people all picked up this from the Municipal Association. I guess it came out that we should be paying attention to this.
Mm.
They talked about us taking an exam.
Oh, boy.
What can you tell us about this, Joseph?
Sure. So, yeah, there are a couple of legislative changes this cycle, a lot which do pertain to the planning and zoning statutes. So, many of them were sort of changed along the process from their original proposal, but what's codified is what's here today. Everyone has a handout. It was jointly developed by Municipal Association and Department of Business and Economic Affairs, and it just gives a quick summary of each change. As far as training, there is now a planning board and zoning board exam. It did not end up being required. There was originally language to require it, which was removed, but it is an optional exam. You can go take it either anonymously or you can take it under your name and receive a certificate, which would, be yours. It's not tracked by anyone. It's your, decision. It can be a good knowledge check. It's based on the zoning board handbook, which is developed by the BEA. couple of minor changes about how we do our fees and posting of fees, which we're already in compliance with, so not much there. The change for the planning board, they have to do findings of fact now, similar to this board, so that'll be a change for them. We're already doing it with the zoning board, so it's not, won't change anything as far as your procedure there. The timelines for planning and zoning board applications did change. So now, from the date of receipt of an application, a zoning board has 90 days to begin consideration and approve or disapprove of an application. So that's unless the applicant agrees to an extension. And the other key portion of this is that if the board, in hearing that application, determines that it doesn't have sufficient information, the board has the authority to deny the application without prejudice, which would allow for the same or a substantially similar application to be resubmitted again in the future. So that is sort of a workaround on that one, I suppose, but there's also the opportunity to agree to an extension with the applicant, which there's no timeline necessarily on what that extension can be. It's whatever's deemed reasonable by both parties. But the big one is that once we receive an application, there's that 90-day clock that will start ticking to have consideration and an approval or disapproval.
The approval has to be within the 90 days, or just the beginning of the?
So as it's written, unless there is an extension given, the approval or denial would have to be also within that 90 days. That's the big one for the zoning board. There are, a couple of other changes to planning and zoning statutes, some changes to TIF districts, which, we don't have an operating TIF district anymore. We have in the past, but can use those for more to incentivize housing. That's a key change there. And then there's a change which is under another House bill, which is included on this, and this essentially exempts religious uses from much of the zoning regulations, site plan review regulations, which could impact this board. They're recommending that you have, they didn't include necessarily a definition of what a use has to do to be considered a religious use and thus be exempt from most of the statutes. So they're recommending having the applicants, the landowner, fill out an affidavit, and they've provided a sample affidavit of religious use of land. It's also in this joint advisory statement. So there are some very specific things that you can regulate, including specifically height, yard size, lot area, setbacks, open space, and building coverage, but you cannot regulate essentially any other characteristics of the property, including parking, lighting, landscaping, drainage, that type of thing. So it does, change things to some extent. I'm not sure if there's, I'm not sure if it will come up too much. We don't have lots of religious land uses, but it does give a pretty broad exemption. So if one were to come before this board, there's really no ability of zoning to require even a special exception in our understanding of it for a religious use.
Did you watch the webinar?
Yes. Yep.
Would it prepare someone for the test?
I think that the biggest portion of the test, and we've looked at it a little bit, is the planning and zoning board handbooks is kind of what they've directly pulled from. So I would say that most likely anything is just going to be pulled straight from the handbook. I think the webinar more talked about the changes, at least this webinar. There is the planning and zoning, the zoning board general presentation, which is available on the BEA website. I imagine that, and that pulls a lot from the handbook. So I'd imagine that one would be a pretty good prep for this. You also have the option to take it, as a practice round. They have this anonymous version, which isn't tied to you individually. So you could always sort of take a practice round and then sit for it and under your name and get a
Do
certificate.
we have to answer planning board questions or just zoning questions?
They're two separate tests for the separate boards.
That's good.
You still on the planning board?
You gotta do both.
Wow.
You're gonna do both.
You have to do both tests.
I heard the word optional.
The other thought, we could, at some meeting, go through the test as a group, if you really, as a training session, you know, you could, whether it's a case or not, you know, we could, if you wanted to meet, or if there was a next meeting, just kind of go through it and have it up on the screen or something and talk through. I mean, the planning board one was something about like how many alternate members are there or something, and I actually got one wrong because I guess I'd forgotten that an alternate member can get appointed to vote, at least on the planning board, but they can't chair the meeting. So if the chair's absent, the alternate
Oh, gosh.
can't, you know, so it's like, but I'm not too worried about that ever being a, you know,
You can't.
having that become an issue, even if it happened, like, you know. You know what I mean? It's just like if a lot of members were missing and you had 3 alternates and all they can serve, and I think the quorum can be made up of alternates, but, and
like
that was
your
on the
idea.
planning board side, so it's sort of,
like your
those are the
idea.
kinds of questions, and it's like short, you know,
How many questions are there?
maybe 30, and I didn't look at the zoning board one yet, so I'm guessing it's like, what's the criteria for special exceptions? What's the criteria for, you know, that kind of stuff, so.
If we ever have another meeting,
Procedural stuff for you, you know, as the rules of procedure. So sometimes it's good to, you know,
I'm gonna suggest,
you can,
maybe you guys will agree, that we get the zoning one, put it up on the board.
yeah, and just talk through
Is
it.
that an executive session thing, or is that a public?
It would just be a meeting when you can have that on the agenda. You're gonna do some training from the zoning board, you know.
We have to be video recorded though.
It's been through the town's policy, so I think we can go through it, you know, as like a talking through it or something, so.
Okay,
If we wanted, it's, you know, wait till the next time there's a meeting and just kind of go add some time or do,
Be great.
we'll look at the questions and sort of,
then we'll know whether we wanna take it or not.
yeah, kind of, you know, I think some of it seems really obvious, and then other time they're gonna ask those types of really specific, kind of odd questions that we'll have to, you can also do an open book by, the zoning board in New Hampshire handbook is a really good guide, so that's always a good piece to, you know, and that's really what they based these exams, these quizzes off of, I think, so, yeah.
All right with that, Butch? Sure.
Do we have a, I think that'd be great.
It's unanimous that we'd like to give that a shot.
Do you wanna just wait till you have another application, do it, not do a special meeting, you know, for just that, right? I mean, wait till, yeah, okay.
Unless it's a really crowded agenda, which
Yeah,
we
well-
haven't seen in a long time.
It's true. Do we need, alternates for this committee? For this board?
The zoning board should have alternates. We have had trouble finding people, so, you know, if anybody's out there watching, interested in wanting to, you know, help participate with that.
Could you come on as an alternate?
No, I'm not a resident, so.
Oh. I could buy you a house in Plymouth or something.
I will sell you a house sometime.
Okay. Any other business that come before us tonight?
I don't know.
I'm not aware of any others.
Okay.
Thanks for all your work prepping for this tonight.
If you did this, you did a nice job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank
Make
you.
our work very easy.
Have a motion?
Sure, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.